July 2016, Hong Kong. Inside a crowded dormitory at the University of Science and Technology, the air is thick with the silent intensity of the world's greatest young minds. But while hundreds of students are dreaming of gold medals, one 8-year-old boy is staring at the door, calculating the most dangerous variable of his life. His name is Yol-ri. He is a mathematical prodigy from North Korea, and in exactly 60 seconds he is going to disappear. He isn't running from a failed exam. He is running from a future where his brain belongs to a shadow army. As Zhang steps into the humid Hong Kong night, he isn't just leaving a competition. He is defecting from one of the most secretive regimes on Earth. One wrong turn, one suspicious glance from his handlers, and he won't just lose his freedom, his entire family back in Pyongyang will pay the ultimate price. The world knows North Korea for its missiles and its military parades. But behind the Iron Curtain, there is a different kind of weapon being forged: human calculators. Yol-ri was the crown jewel of this program. To the North Korean regime, a boy who can solve complex differential equations in his sleep isn't just a student. He is a biological supercomputer. He was destined for Bureau 121, the elite cyber warfare division responsible for terrorizing global banks and dismantling digital infrastructures. But on this night, the math changed. Zhang hailed a red taxi, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He had one destination: the South Korean consulate. This wasn't just a walk to freedom. It was the start of a 70-day diplomatic nightmare that would bring two nuclear-armed nations to the brink of a standoff in the heart of a global financial hub. Why would a boy who had everything: special rations, a rare laptop, and the protection of the Kim regime risk a bullet in the back to escape? To understand the gamble Yol-ri took, we have to go back to where it all began. A small town where a father realized his son's gift was both a golden ticket and a death sentence. In most corners of the globe, your future is a canvas painted by your choices. But in North Korea, your life is a script written decades before you were born. This is the Songbun system, a rigid socio-political classification that dictates everything from the food you eat to the career you are assigned. Yol-ri was born into a rare pocket of luck. His family belonged to the loyal class, those with ties to the ruling party or a history of fighting against Japanese occupation. This meant Zhang didn't wake up to the sound of factory whistles or the gnawing ache of famine. Instead, he woke up to a father who saw something extraordinary in his son's quiet focus. Zhang's father understood the brutal mathematics of survival in Pyongyang. Talent is the only currency that can buy a different life. While other children were learning revolutionary songs, Zhang was drilled on multiplication tables. His father was a shadow director of his education, refusing to let him play until every equation was solved, every logic puzzle mastered. It wasn't just parental ambition. It was a desperate attempt to weaponize his son's intellect. In a country where one wrong word can end a bloodline, being a human calculator was the safest way to be indispensable to the great leader. By the age of 12, the investment paid off. Zhang entered a national mathematics competition, standing among teenagers twice his size. He didn't just win. He dismantled the problems with a speed that felt supernatural. It was here that Yol-ri first felt the cold, heavy gaze of the state. He had caught the eye of the regime's educational elite. Suddenly, his life was no longer his father's project. He was now an asset of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. To reward his genius and to ensure his loyalty, the regime granted him something almost mythical in North Korea: a laptop. In a land of frequent blackouts and zero internet, this plastic machine was a portal to a world Zhang wasn't supposed to know existed. But the gift came with a hidden price tag. The regime wasn't just giving him a tool for math. They were beginning to groom him for a battlefield he couldn't yet see. For a teenager in North Korea, being sent to the first middle school in Pyongyang is like being recruited by NASA or MIT. It is a sanctuary for the regime's future intellectual elite. Here, the walls are covered in propaganda posters of the Kims, but the chalkboards are filled with advanced calculus and fluid dynamics. Zhong Yol-ri was no longer just a boy from a provincial town. He was now a scientific talent. This title was a shield. While millions of his peers were forced into grueling manual labor or years of mandatory military service, Zhong was told to do only one thing: think. But in Pyongyang, privilege is always transactional. The regime didn't value mathematics for the sake of pure science. They valued it for the logic required to build ballistic missiles, crack foreign encryptions, and bypass global financial firewalls. To accelerate his training, Zhong was handed a prize that few in his country would ever see: a laptop. In the early 2010s, in North Korea, owning a computer was more than wealth nigh on divine status. The machine was a digital island. It had no internet, no connection to the outside world, and was preloaded only with state-approved math software. However, the biggest hurdle wasn't the software, it was the power. North Korea's electrical grid is a ghost. It flickers on for an hour and vanishes for a day. In a country plunged into darkness every night, a dead laptop is just a useless piece of plastic. This is where Zhong's genius shifted from the abstract to the practical. He didn't wait for the state to fix the grid. Using discarded solar cells and fragments of copper wire, he engineered a makeshift solar array to keep his machine alive during the bleak winters. When the sun failed, he learned to repurpose small gasoline generators. He was a boy, innovating under extreme scarcity, proving to his handlers that he could solve any problem, no matter how impossible. His teachers watched his progress with predatory interest. They saw a mind that didn't just understand numbers, but understood how to bend technology to his will. They realized Zhong was ready for the world stage, the International Mathematical Olympiad, IMO. But they didn't realize that by giving Zhong a tool to solve equations, they had given him the very tool he would use to calculate his escape. In 2013, Zhong Yol-ri boarded a plane for the first time. Destination: Santa Marta, Colombia. For a boy who had spent his life under the gray skies of a controlled society, landing in South America was like walking into a fever dream. Through the window of the team bus, he saw things that shouldn't exist according to his textbooks. He saw brightly lit skyscrapers that didn't flicker. He saw streets choked with thousands of private cars. He saw people laughing and talking freely in public squares, without a single portrait of a great leader in sight. The propaganda had always told him that the outside world was a wasteland of poverty and chaos. But as he walked through the vibrant streets of Colombia, Zhong realized the math didn't add up. The world wasn't suffering, it was thriving. For the first time, the open loop in his mind began to widen. If the regime had lied about the outside world, what else had they lied about? But there was no time for philosophy. The North Korean team was under a military-grade microscope. They were there to perform, not to sightsee. The regime had invested heavily in Zhong, and they expected a return on that investment in the form of a gold medal. To Pyongyang, the IMO wasn't just a math competition, it was a battlefield for national legitimacy. The North Korean team performed brilliantly, ranking 5th in the world, standing shoulder to shoulder with titans like the US, Russia, and China. Zhong himself secured a silver medal, a monumental achievement for any 15-year-old. But as he stood on that stage, he didn't feel like a hero. He felt a cold dread. In North Korea, silver is the first loser. The officials accompanying the team didn't offer congratulations. Instead, they offered a chilling reminder of the regime's generosity. They reminded him of his special food rations, his laptop, and the solar panels he used to study. As Zhong gripped his medal, a dark realization took hold. All those years of support weren't a gift, they were a loan, and the regime was about to come to collect. They didn't want him to just solve equations anymore. They wanted him to use his talent to help the regime survive a world that was leaving them behind. To the outside world, North Korea is often portrayed as a relic of the past, a country of 1950s-era tractors and steam engines. But in the world of espionage, this perception is a dangerous illusion. Deep within the heavily guarded districts of Pyongyang, lies a facility that exists entirely in the future. This is the headquarters of Bureau 121. If the conventional military is the regime's shield, Bureau 121 is its invisible sword. The origins of this digital fist date back to the 1970s. Initially, North Korea sent its brightest students to East Germany and the Soviet Union to learn computer science. But the goal wasn't global conquest. It was simple factory automation. However, by the late 1990s, Kim Jong-il had a terrifying epiphany. He realized that in the 21st century, bits and bytes could be more lethal than bullets and bayonets. He famously declared that all wars in the future will be computer wars. This led to the creation of an asymmetric warfare strategy. North Korea knew it could never win a traditional tank-on-tank battle against the United States or South Korea. But in the digital realm, the playing field was level. A single genius with a keyboard could paralyze a city's power grid or drain a national bank from thousands of miles away. Bureau 121 became the elite home for these cyber warriors. It isn't just an office. It is a sprawling network of thousands of specialists, divided into units focused on everything from military reconnaissance to financial sabotage. This is where Jong Yol-ri's trajectory was headed. The regime didn't just want him to win math medals. They wanted him to become a high-level architect for this shadow army. They needed his brain to build the complex algorithms that could bypass Western firewalls. But as Jong's skill grew, so did the stakes of Bureau 121's missions. The world was about to witness what happens when a state-sponsored hacker group decides to go on the offensive. And for Jong, the realization was chilling. Once you enter the shadow network, you never truly leave. If Bureau 121 is the headquarters, the Lazarus group is the elite commando unit. In the world of cybersecurity, this name is synonymous with digital terror. They aren't just hobbyist hackers or lone wolves. They are state-sponsored professionals with the resources of a nation-state behind them. Their mission? To turn the global financial system into North Korea's personal ATM. The world first felt the sting of Lazarus in 2014. In an unprecedented act of corporate sabotage, they decimated Sony Pictures. It wasn't just about stealing unreleased movies. It was a scorched earth policy in retaliation for a comedy film that mocked Kim Jong-un. They wiped entire servers, leaked private emails, and paralyzed a Hollywood giant. It was a clear message. Mess with the regime, and we will delete your digital existence. But the most audacious mission was yet to come. In 2016, while Jong Yol-ri was preparing for his final math competition, Lazarus launched a heist that felt like a plot from Ocean's 11. They targeted the Bangladesh bank's account at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. By infiltrating the SWIFT messaging system, the very backbone of global banking, they attempted to steal nearly $1 billion. They nearly pulled it off. A simple spelling error in one of the transfer requests, writing foundation instead of foundation, triggered a red flag. Yet, even with that mistake, they walked away with $81 million. That money vanished into a complex web of casinos in the Philippines and shell companies across Asia, eventually making its way back to Pyongyang. For the Kim regime, these heists are a lifeline. Every dollar stolen is a dollar used to fund nuclear tests and intercontinental ballistic missiles, bypassing every international sanction ever written. This was the dark reality Jong Yol-ri was starting to grasp. His mathematical genius wasn't going to be used to advance human knowledge. It was going to be used to build digital crowbars for the world's most dangerous bank robbers. The more he learned about the missions his predecessors were undertaking, the more his silver medal felt like a brand of shame. What does life look like inside the most guarded digital fortress on the planet? For the young recruits of North Korea's cyber division, the world shrinks to the size of a high-tech campus. Once identified as a prodigy like Jong Yol-ri, your childhood ends. You are moved into specialized facilities run directly by the state, where your routine is dictated with military precision. From sunrise to sunset, the air is filled not with the sound of laughter, but with the rhythmic clatter of thousands of mechanical keyboards. In a country where most citizens struggle for a bowl of rice, These cyber warriors are treated like royalty. They receive high-protein diets, modern housing, and access to luxury goods that are invisible to the general population. This golden cage strategy is deliberate. The regime knows that a hungry mind is a distracted mind. By providing comfort, they aim to manufacture loyalty. But this comfort comes with a shadow: constant 24-hour surveillance. Their daily life is a relentless cycle of coding, malware development, and penetration testing courses. They are taught to see the internet not as a library of information, but as a battlefield where every server is a target and every firewall is an obstacle to be dismantled. They work in highly structured teams, each member specializing in a niche, some on social engineering, others on zero-day exploits. Despite their elite status, they are isolated. Their access to the global web is heavily filtered and monitored by political officers whose only job is to ensure that no capitalist viruses or ideas of freedom infect their minds. They are the intellectual elite, yet they are forbidden from knowing the true state of their own country. They are given the best computers in the world, yet they cannot send a personal email. This paradox creates a high-pressure environment where the only escape is excellence. For Yol-ri, looking at the faces of his peers, he saw a haunting reflection of his own future. A life where his genius was a prison cell, and his only window to the world was a monitor controlled by the state. When Yol-ri returned to Pyongyang after his 2015 performance, the celebration was brief. Behind the handshakes and the state-issued certificates, something was shifting. The atmosphere in his school felt different, heavier, more calculated. A few weeks later, a close friend whispered a warning that chilled Zhang to his core. "Men in suits have been visiting your neighbors. They were at your father's office. They are asking about everyone you've ever spoken to." In North Korea, this is the sound of the forensic audit of a life. It wasn't just a background check. It was the vetting process for the elite cyber warriors. The regime was verifying his songbun to ensure he was pure enough to be trusted with their most sensitive digital secrets. They were preparing to claim him. The realization hit Zhang with the force of a physical blow. He wasn't being invited into a career. He was being drafted into a digital prison. But the most terrifying part wasn't the loss of his own freedom. It was the Yol-ri, the system of collective punishment. In North Korea, a crime isn't just an individual act. It is a stain on the bloodline. If Zhang were to run, the regime wouldn't just look for him. They would come for his father. They would come for his mother. They might even reach back to his grandparents or forward to his future children. This policy of 3 generations of punishment is the ultimate psychological anchor, designed to make the cost of defection higher than the cost of a lifetime of slavery. Zhang sat in his room, looking at the silver medal that now felt like a lead weight. He calculated the variables of his remaining time. He was 17. The International Mathematical Olympiad has an age limit of 18. The 2016 competition in Hong Kong would be his final window of opportunity before the military's shadow swallowed him forever. He was a mathematician, and for the first time, he wasn't solving for an equation. He was solving for his soul. He began to study the map of Hong Kong, not for its landmarks, but for its escape routes. The 2016 Olympiad wasn't a competition anymore. It was a countdown to a rebirth or a death sentence. July 2016. The Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, HKUST, is a sprawling modern campus overlooking the sea. For most of the students gathered for the 57th International Mathematical Olympiad, the biggest fear is a difficult geometry problem. For Yol-ri, the fear is much simpler: a bullet or a labor camp. He had just won his second silver medal, but the medal felt cold against his chest. He knew that once he boarded the plane back to Pyongyang, the door to his life would lock forever. The supervision at these events is legendary. North Korean minders and teachers follow the students everywhere, even to the bathroom. They are trained to spot the slightest hint of hesitation. But Zhang had calculated this variable too. He had been friendly, compliant, and invisible. He waited for the exact moment when the collective guard dropped a brief window of celebration after the closing ceremony. With nothing but the clothes on his back and his silver medal, Yol-ri walked out of his dormitory. Every step across the campus felt like walking on a landmine. Every shadow was a secret policeman. Every passing car was a potential kidnapping. He reached the edge of the campus and hailed a red taxi. "Airport," he told the driver. His heart was beating so loud he feared the driver could hear it. At the airport, in a desperate move, he sought help from an airline worker. He didn't have a passport, but he had a story and a look of pure terror. The worker, realizing the stakes, gave him the one thing he needed most: the address of the South Korean consulate in Hong Kong. Jong took a second taxi. As the neon lights of Hong Kong blurred past the window, he was no longer a math prodigy. He was a fugitive. He arrived at the consulate and told the diplomat the 5 words that would change history. "I wish to defect." But the ordeal wasn't over. Yol-ri would spend the next 70 days trapped inside that building, waiting nervously while South Korean and Chinese officials negotiated his safe passage to Seoul, while North Korean agents circled the building like sharks. He was safe, but he was a prisoner of diplomacy. After 70 days of high-stakes diplomatic chess, the deadlock finally broke. Yol-ri was quietly escorted onto a plane, landing in Seoul under a heavy veil of secrecy. But for Jong, the victory was bittersweet. In North Korea, the regime's reaction was swift and vengeful. They suspended their participation in the International Mathematical Olympiad for 2 years, and when they finally returned, every student was accompanied by a permanent government shadow to ensure no one else would ever dream of running. Today, Jong is in his early 32nd. He lives under a South Korean name, a ghost in a city of millions. He fulfilled his dream of studying mathematics at the prestigious Seoul National University, but his success is haunted by a deafening silence. He has not heard his parents' voices or seen their faces since the moment he stepped into that taxi in Hong Kong. In the math of defection, he found his freedom, but the remainder is a lifelong debt of guilt and longing. But while Jong found his way out, the war he was recruited for has only escalated. The Lazarus group didn't disappear after his defection. If anything, they became more lethal. From the global WannaCry ransomware attack that paralyzed hospitals to the staggering $600 million heist of the Ronin network, North Korea's cyber army continues to prove that they are the world's most effective digital mercenaries. They are no longer just hacking for pride, they are hacking for the survival of a regime. Yol-ri's story is a reminder that in the 21st century, the most valuable resource a dictatorship can possess isn't uranium or oil, it is the brilliance of its youth. As you watch this, remember that behind every major cyber attack, there might be a mind like Jong's, a genius forced to choose between a life of crime or a life of exile. The digital frontier is the new front line. If you found Jong's journey incredible, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're diving deep into the world's most guarded secrets every week. What do you think? Was the price Jong paid for his freedom too high? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching.